Good day, Oakwood Harbor owners, families, and friends. I'm Mark Phillips, administrator of the Facebook group called Oakwood Harbor Owners for Change. Bear with me, this is my first video, but I created that group specifically to inform owners of their rights under the HOA covenants. All the explanations regarding those rights are my opinion, based on the study of those covenants, as well as House Bill 1668, legislation that was passed effective as of 2004 by the Oklahoma State Legislature, commonly referred to as RETA, an acronym for the Real Estate and Development Act. This legislation is Oklahoma law that provides legal guidelines for a homeowners association in this state. As a legal disclaimer, I will say if your interpretation differs from mine, that's fine, and I encourage you to seek the advice of a competent attorney in our jurisdiction of McIntosh County. My recommendation is that you consult with Ryan Ferguson of Chakotah, based solely on the fact that Attorney Ferguson has been consulted with by Ryan Sundgaard before, during, and after he organized the special owners meeting that took place in August of 2019. And he is familiar with the challenges we owners have faced then, now, and in the near future. Again, bear with me, this is my first video attempt. Just for the record, I'm also now meeting with Attorney Ferguson myself in regards to a new special owners meeting. And I wanted to thank Ryan Sundgaard for his attempt, dedication, and tenacity regarding the August meeting. Sadly, there were minor mistakes that we have all learned from that meeting that caused it to be invalidated, and as such the vote results as well. At the time, in the interest of giving the newly elected board time to settle in and acclimate, we decided as a group to wait for a little while and monitor their performance before initiating a second meeting, as well as to afford us a small amount of time ourselves to refine our agenda, organization, and the owner participation. This is mainly an introduction and explanation of what myself and other owners feel is a solution to the problem, the proposed agenda to a new special meeting, as well as a plea for you as the owner to take a stand, get involved, and be heard as we try to make Oakwood Harbor a better place. We believe that the first course of action is to repeal all amendments made by this Board of Trustees since their taking office and revert back to the 2010 covenants temporarily, as it was a bit more orientated at that time, and the purpose of this is to return the owners to a place where the owners did not face excessive challenges when so much is more at stake right now in 2021. As stipulated in the covenants, as well as RETA, the prime directive of any HOA is for the trustees to operate for the sole benefit of the lot purchasers and lot owners. And excessive fines, assessment raises without a plan for those funds, or any explanation as to how the money will be used, as well as neglected maintenance on roads, bathhouses, water supplies, and sewers are the prime issues creating challenges for even obstacles rather than addressing the main problems. And we also believe that the covenants need to be removed. Some covenants need to be removed, refined, or updated to reflect the current day that we live in, just as they have been updated between 1993 and 2010 to reflect the changes in time, population, and the needs of the owners. A change is now warranted to deal with the real world and community problems created by COVID-19, such as increased unemployment, food supply shortages, and economic downsizing, to be able to live in a tiny home, trailer, or a barn to cabin conversion more efficiently and at less cost as we get through the COVID-19 pandemic. Agenda options such as abolishing the covenants restricting chickens and small animals to supplement food shortages is a fairly simple, and it benefits all of the current owners struggling to get by. Opening the doorway for others to house a few small animals also makes the community more attractive to buyers wishing to live a sustainable life or have a viable social distancing option during another lockdown, where they can retreat to and bring their animals without fear of reprisal. What I propose to solve this issue and many of the other owners that are part of the board without disrupting the board entirely, making them feel as if they are being given the boot, just as they did with Ryan Sundgaard, Karen Combs' resignation, and recently Beverly Dunham's has a new appointment to the board, and we have yet to be explained why there was a vacancy. I'm going to ad-lib just a tiny bit here and say Ryan was posting information that was pertinent to us as owners. Whether or not it was the financials, covenants as they actually were at that time, or amendments that were being proposed, he was posting that information, much as I have done. But he was in a position where he could be punished, and he was. He was booted out unjustly, and in my opinion, illegally, because the covenants require certain inabilities to do the job in order to replace a trustee on the spot. And they just voted him off because he was a pain. They didn't like the idea that Ryan was giving information out. They didn't like being challenged in their shortcomings, and much more to the story. And please feel free to spend some time with Ryan sometime and ask him what happened. But the bottom line is that he was removed. Rhonda was forced to resign, in her own opinion. I mean, it was not forced, but forced to resign because she felt that things were getting a little out of control. And you can, again, I don't want to elaborate because it's her story. You can speak with David Combs or her about why, but she had to resign. And of course, in both of these instances, the Board of Trustees, rather than bring it to an owner vote, to replace a duly elected trustee, they took it upon themselves to just appoint someone. Such is the case as well with Beverly. Beverly's a good lady. We've spoke a bit. She is actually a member of our board, but she was appointed to the Board of Trustees. There was no explanation as to why a vacancy took place. And this is a common problem with this board. They don't give reasons for anything. So, now that I've actually taken a moment to get off track on that, amendments, like I said, such as abolishing the restriction on chickens and small animals, is a no-brainer. There's plenty of people that are already doing it that are facing excessive fines, and it helps to support the owners of those properties with a little bit of extra food supply should the supply chain be interrupted again as it has in the past. What I propose to solve these issues, again, without disrupting the board entirely, is a new covenant that be added to the bylaws requiring a oversight and steering committee. This leaves the current leadership in place unless they resign on their own, for their own reasons, on their own volition, and that committee should require a representative from each section that lives here, not in a faraway town, to be voted on by owners to communicate, represent, and put forward amendments to the board or owners for a vote based on their constituencies' wishes. This is important because I believe that there's not been any oversight in the past, all the way back, dating back to 1993. They've had problems with embezzlement and rumors of people just taking whatever they want. And whether or not that exists today is obviously up for debate, but there are oddities that go on, and we do not get good explanations. We also get booted off the board, such as I did tonight, for challenging the current president. And the president, by the way, is not a voting member of the board, for those of you that don't understand how the board works, but is the leader of the board. He's the person that makes the proposals and organizes the trustees, and he provides a leadership role, much as the President of the United States provides a leadership role, but it's up to the Congress and the House to actually adopt legislation, write it, adopt it, vote on it. So this person is very controlling, and if you say something he doesn't like, you get booted off the board, much like booting you off of his group. So anyways, also that committee would have, if approved, would have complete access to financials, receipts for expenses, and provide oversight for the day-to-day operations unobstructed in order to report or investigate owner-generated concerns, complaints, or accusations. And this committee should also be given the responsibility to organize, tabulate, verify, and report election results, owner-amended votes. As a separate and impartial committee, similarly outlined in an often referenced Piney Creek covenants. Again, I'm going to go off track here for a second and say that several of our owners have referred or referenced to the Piney Creek covenants. I've reviewed them. I have them on hand, as well as Rhonda and Sue. You are more than welcome to take a look at their covenants. Their covenants are very owner-oriented. They don't have excessive fines, and they operate quite nicely, and they have a very nice HOA. We can learn a lot from those covenants, but one of those things is they have a separate and impartial election committee. I don't believe we've grown to the point yet where a separate committee is used for that, but I believe that it should be up to the people to assign a committee for that later on. In the meantime, it should be impartial and separate from the trustee board, so it should be under the steering and oversight committee. This would allow the trustees the time needed to focus on daily challenges, finances, and debt collections from owners that have fallen behind, and empower the owners to decide what priorities need to be addressed as soon as humanly possible through direct contact and communication with their section representative. Much as the federal government is regulated and watched over by civilian oversight committees that are paid for by the people's taxes. And yes, I believe and look forward to your input on this regarding making this an employee of the owner's position, meaning, for example, each representative would be required to spend a minimum of 10 hours per month speaking with and documenting the concerns of their owners, preparing a brief synopsis of the concerns of their section, and present them to a committee meeting scheduled 1 week before the next trustee board meeting. And then, once that meeting is complete, then they should be presented in a rotating manner, meaning that you've got 6 sections, 6 representatives. Each representative would take his time that month, once every 6 months, to present the findings of the oversight and steering committee to the board for proposal. Also review and voting options, such as whether or not this is something that the board can just vote on or something that the owners should be required to vote on. Major decisions are generally brought to the owners. That's not been the case with this board. We were given an option in the first round of election, or votes rather, for an assessment raise, and on the second one, because it was declined, we were given no options. We're only given 2 options, an either or, not an opportunity to say no. We also weren't provided with enough information as to what this money would go to. And I want to stress something that people have misunderstood for a while now, and that is there are 2 different types of assessment changes. The assessments that are regular and yearly are for the sole purpose of maintenance, upgrades, and such that are a day-to-day expense for the HOA. A special assessment is a one-time special assessment that has a lifespan of either 1 to 3 years and cannot exceed $50 per month additional on top of your regular assessments. But in order to give you a special assessment, then there has to be planning. If you read the covenants, you'll see what I mean, but a brief overview of that is, if they wanted to put in a pool, for instance, and they wanted to do a special assessment for that pool, they would need to include in that special assessment vote any information regarding the cost of materials, the labor required, any of the permits or special actions that would take place before the work could actually be completed. And then they would be able to say, okay, we're going to put a special assessment together for $50 a month, per year, on top of your regular assessment, and that will only be for 1 year. Let's say they redid the whole entire office and it needed to be a larger sum of money. Again, all of those same requirements for the information. A proposal would have to be put together, and a prospectus that would outline the costs, would outline what you're getting for your money, and then they would be able to extend that if needed up to a maximum of 3 years. Again, this is all in the covenants, and whatever isn't in the covenants is covered under HB 1668. So either way, you can look it up online or whatnot and see those are two separate things. One requires accountability, that is the special assessment. One does not, which is the raise in the general assessments. And they can do this as long as they post it and the owners don't fight it. You have up to a year to fight this, and this is why we're getting organized now, because everyone agrees that those assessments should not have been made without some kind of explanation. There's a great deal of us that believe that the money is needed, that the upgrades are needed, but there was no explanation as to where it would go, which leaves a lot of room for misuse. Moving on, for this service, for instance, of the committee, and them being employees of the people, each committee member would receive, and this is arbitrary numbers, would receive $150 per month for a 10-hour requirement to reimburse them for their time and their travel, regardless if the meeting with their residents is set at their own home, at the owner's property, the main office, or any other venue. So John Smith comes up from Oklahoma City and he wants to sit with his representative. He can either go to his house or they can go out to lunch, whatever the case may be. We're not reimbursing lunch, but we are giving $150 per month to travel to the restaurant and to take the time to speak with your constituency. The flat fee rate naturally could be modified later on by an owner vote, not a trustee or a committee vote, which is another issue. I'm going to stop again and ad lib here. Is another issue that we have. The current board is focused on, or has been focused on, raises. They have been focused on bringing in more revenue. They have been focused on a great deal of things that benefits the office, when in fact they should be focused on fixing roads and reporting it and communicating it to us. They did this, this, and this, and this was done on a such a day, or is scheduled to happen. Maybe a top 10 list of the worst roads that there are. We have bathrooms and bathhouses that are not only in violation of the American Disabilities Act, ADA, they are also disgusting. There's black mold on a lot of the rotted wood. The pipes are constantly breaking. These are all situations that should have been on the very, very, very top of the agenda for the trustees. But instead, they have been spending, and again, this is in the financials of the minutes, and I have all of the minutes dating back to August of 2019, or 2020 rather. But anyways, the point is you can look these up and see for yourself that there has been a consistent increase in $250 fees for consulting with their attorney, because they're trying to close the loopholes and they have an agenda of their own. And I have said this facetiously, that we are the trustees owned association, not a homeowners association. Their agenda has come first in many cases, and this is one of the reasons why I say the flat fee, if we were to install a committee to steer and oversee the trustee board, that could be modified if it needed to be later on, but not by a trustee vote or a committee vote. At any time when needed, as well as guidelines for operation and duties of the steering committee and oversight committee, they can be refined as well. This is just a basic information for you right now to digest and comment on, and please do comment, because The only way I can put something together like this is if you participate. But it is my sincere belief that this would provide the oversight needed to keep the trustees on track to their obligation to serve the owners and steer the trustees into a direction of what the owners want, while at the same time reducing the opportunity for negligence, misuse of funds, unfulfilled plans regarding upgrades, repairs, or agendas that are in conflict with the owner's desires. So again, I'll wrap it up here shortly, and I hope this was brief and informative, but I have been meeting with the attorney, and there's this card to show you. If you don't feel that any of this information is correct or whatnot, then feel free to contact Mr. Ferguson yourself or another attorney of competent grade. When I say competent, someone who has real estate law or HOA law in their venue or their tool arsenal as an attorney. This just happens to be a very local person who is familiar with what's gone on because he helped with Ryan, and now I'm talking to him directly because we want to either avoid the mistakes that happened that ended up invalidating the vote, or we are considering the possibility of taking up a donation from each of the owners that's interested in sponsoring this special meeting and having the attorney do it himself. He has in the past reflected, or not reflected, but indicated that he would do this vote, this special owner's vote, for $500. I'm going to meet with him this coming Wednesday, the 3rd, as I have posted, to get some more specific details on what that $500 would cover and any guarantees should it be challenged in court, which I foresee is happening, from the trustee board regarding its validity, and whether or not that would cover that cost as well. So, in the end, I'll wrap it up by saying that if we do this, and we should, and we need to get organized. So please, give me comments on this board. I'm trying to do this alone, as you can tell. Some people like Robin and Sue, for instance, have stepped up. Ryan is shell-shocked. I've tried to draft him back into helping us because we don't always see eye to eye on a lot of things. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, and some people have strong beliefs. We don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but what I do respect about Ryan is that he actually cares about Oakwood Harbor, and he believes in transparency, and he was trying to give us all a message, and it was shot down by propaganda, and it was shot down by the controlling members of the board, and he was obviously evicted from his position unjustly, and in my opinion illegally, because he was able to do the job. They just weren't able to get him under control. And I don't want to divulge any information that has been given to me in confidence, but the reasons for Rhonda leaving were similar. That there was things going on that you just need to ask her about. But the point being is changes do need to be made. So please help us get organized. Whether or not I did receive an email just this evening from a prominent owner with a few lots that has offered to chip in towards this attorney. And what I need to hear from you people is whether or not you want to do this ourselves. I have already found a hall that we can get together in, and it's $100 for the whole day. So that means if you're coming from Oklahoma City to vote in person, or you're catching a ride with me or one of the other organizers to the hall, which is located right next to the post office in Council Hill, then that's fine, because we're going to be there all day. We've also got a notary that said that they would notarize all of the votes, ballots for free. So we could do it ourselves, but we do take a certain amount of risk that something will be done wrong. And believe it or not, the only reason the vote was invalidated was because Ryan changed the date at the last moment to convenience people, not realizing that invalidated the date. So you have to post the date and time of the meeting in the newspaper for 2 weeks, and that in itself is like a $26 fee. So there's an inexpensive way to do it with risk, or there is a possibility of just having the owner handle it, the attorney handle it from beginning to end, and getting our agenda squared up. I think if we add too many things to the agenda, we're going to make it more complex. By taking away the animal covenant altogether, and by reverting back to the 2010 covenants, which respected the owners a lot more than the ones that are here now, that are being constantly modified, and $250 each time one of the trustees goes in to get a little education about the law and how to word this particular amendment and make it legal. It's costing $250 out of my assessments and yours, and that has been steadily increasing. So they're organized and they're getting the job done. We need to get organized and get the job done. So basically that's it. I will post some more videos. Again, this isn't my forte. I'm not a blog person or a video person, but I thought it was important to be able to explain myself to each and every one of you and what the agenda should be. But we're stronger together than apart, so please give some information, make any suggestions, whether or not they're publicly or privately. I prefer publicly because I believe in transparency. But again, this was to explain where we are at this time, and more videos will be coming. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope to hear from you in the future. Have a great evening and a blessed day.